Justice Department investigation. Alan Mendenhall is an attorney and a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Joins us now. Great to have you here. Break this down for us. A contempt finding could lead to an investigation into whether Fauci had a constitutional right against self-incrimination, refusing to answer the questions at the Republican-led Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee hearing last week. It seems a lot very complicated. Maybe simplify it for us if you could.
Sure. Well, there has to be 8 votes to get out of committee, and there are 8 Republican members of this 15-member committee. So we're expecting that eight votes to go through, and there's 7 Democrats on the committee. One of them's Fetterman, so he's kind of the wild card. You might even get 9 votes. But once it gets approved, normally such a matter would go before the full Senate. But Senator Paul has said he may refer the matter directly to the Justice Department, which would bypass the full Senate vote. Why do that? Well, because that would avoid the possibility of the filibuster. It would overcome the filibuster requirement. There are 53 Republicans in the Senate, and 52 really right now because Mitch McConnell's absent. So Paul really needs this, and he's going to file a legal brief today, which will lay out his case. Of course, I haven't seen it yet, but I can kind of I anticipate what it's going to say. Mm-hmm. And I suspect he's going to say, look, the procedure for criminal contempt of Congress is laid out in this federal statute, and it doesn't explicitly require a full Senate vote. It allows a subcommittee to report contempt, and if Congress really wanted to require a full Senate vote on this, the way it does in other statutes, it would have laid it out here, and it didn't lay it out here, and there are other statutes where it does, and the fact that it doesn't here suggests we can do this.
Okay, so really looking at sort of the technicalities here,
Sure.
Which will be interesting to see. You're right, we're waiting to see exactly what he'll do next. But let's just say, Alan, that it does make it to the DOJ, whether it's after a full Senate vote or not. What's going to happen then? I mean, realistically, I understand, President Trump's in office right now. You've got some attorneys who would probably view things the same way President Trump does who are working at DOJ. You might not also. But, what could they really do?
Well, it would go before the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, and then Fauci would most likely go before a grand jury. And this would require him to give more testimony. And then you might potentially get more perjury charges or more charges related to this cell phone stuff that has been referred to the committee just yesterday. So, it is important to point out, though, that this misdemeanor offense, criminal contempt, is really just a slap on the wrist. It's a maximum of 12 months in prison and up to $100,000 fine, which, in light of what Fauci did, seems very minor. I'm interested in watching these state investigations that are going on from states' attorney general, because the presidential pardon only covers federal crimes. It doesn't protect against these state criminal investigations. And I live in Alabama. My attorney general, Steve Marshall, is one of the AGs leading the case. My law school buddy, J.B. McCuskey in West Virginia, is leading an investigation. Of course, Florida was the first to announce investigation.
Is there weight to those, though? I don't mean to interrupt you, but these state cases, is it a lot of just procedure, or could he potentially face criminal proceedings here? And should he be worried about those state cases?
Oh, I think he should definitely be worried because you don't know what the investigations are going to uncover. It's still early to know. With the Alabamas, there's been no subpoena announced yet. There are no search warrants, charges, or indictments, but they're still looking. Florida launched its investigation almost immediately, and it's already issued a subpoena. So, yeah, I think he should be worried. At a minimum, he's going to be entangled in lawsuits for probably the foreseeable future.
Right.
Wow. And maybe that's, how you kind of have an impact on this man and try to showcase, really the impact he had on Americans' lives, right? How powerful his words were said publicly versus what he was writing in the diary entries privately. It was like a different perspective that we just didn't hear. Yeah. Senator Paul, you could sense his frustration when Fauci was on Capitol Hill. Here's what he said.
A pardon is difficult to overcome, but when you have a pardon, you ought to be able to testify. Pleading the fifth, when you have a grant of immunity like a pardon, doesn't really make sense.
We've kind of discussed this and how he was able to maneuver around those answers. But, even if the DOJ, now we're assuming the DOJ is able to bring him in for questioning here. Does he use the same line, or is he actually forced to go word for word about what he said in the diary versus what he was saying publicly?
I suspect he goes through that same routine again.
Yeah.
I will compliment Senator Paul. He was very meticulous in the way he went about the proceedings. If you recall, he had this red folder, which was a printed copy of the federal criminal contempt of Congress law. And it was a red folder to signal, like, you have to look at this. And he put it right in front of him and began with that. And it was a warning to Fauci saying, look, if you refuse to answer, it's a crime. You're on notice of criminal contempt right here. It's right in front of you, and it helps him build this criminal contempt case.
Yeah.
He tried his best, right? He really,
Yeah.
he's super prepared for the hearing. It was like, I was checking to see, is he reading off notes, or is he just going based on memory when he was telling Fauci about all the things he was doing throughout the course of those several years. So he knows his stuff, but we'll see. Alan, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.